Hey guys, hi. Okay, so let's take up where we left off. The Family International and the Children of God organization led by their leader, Prophet Moses David. So I found in my wallet the little piece of paper that they had this little track, this little track with Bible verses on it that they had given me back in Texas right before I was just, there was an intent of homicide against me by these 5 African Americans. So then the sister from this organization, Christian group, commune, it was like a commune. They lived together. They shared everything. They lived in the same house, boys and girls, and they got married, and it was a commune all over the world. So I called their commune headquarters in Texas, and that phone number I had, being that I was in Miami, and I just wanted to. I mean, I needed a fellowship. I needed to find people of the same belief as myself. So I called them and I talked for an hour. I talked their ear off practically. I just couldn't stop. I wanted to tell them. I was so excited to tell them my whole experience because it was so real and so sincere. How I went through this thing where I stopped taking drugs and I mean I would even shoot up heroin and I was even sometimes we even shot up wine in our veins. It didn't work so good, but anyway, we were really into drugs, and so this God it started coming inside of me, this feeling of love and of peace, and I wanted to change the world. I wanted to love everybody because I knew I could see right then that what the world needs is love. There's such a lack of love. That's why there's so much hate, and that's why there's so much racism, and that's why there's so much sadness, and that's why there's so much loneliness. So I called them and I talked their ear off for an hour, and when I finally allowed them to get a word in edgewise, they said to me, well, instead of spending so much money talking long distance, why don't you call our house that we have there in Miami? Well, that was a concept. I said, oh, thank you so much. I was very happy about these news because they seem sort of cool, sort of liberal for Christians. So anyway, they gave me the phone number, and then I hung up and I proceeded to call their house in Miami, and I explained to them everything. And they said that they had certain days of the week where people could come over, newcomers, and visit. So I was very pleased about that. I still had my job, and so they told me the days that I could come over and visit. So I did, and so I was very excited. So but now we got to go into the paranormal. Something extremely strange occurred to me when I would go to visit the Family International Children of God organization house there in Miami. On the way there, everything was fine. I was walking, but then, like, when I would get like a few blocks away from their house, I would feel like the spirits, these a resistance, like almost like the wind blowing me back, like a spiritual warfare going on, a turmoil inside of me that didn't want me to go there, and all these fears and doubts and paranoias and it was a struggle. I wanted to turn back and run, but I just felt I couldn't, and something told me, no, you have to keep walking forward, keep walking forward. It was like a nightmare, man, like a spooky nightmare. I mean, I felt like these spirits and everything that were just surrounding me and were pushing me back. But I insisted and I kept walking forward, walking forward. Of course, none of this was visible. It was like I don't know, like a spiritual thing, so paranormal, obviously. And but the minute I knocked on, I finally made it to their door. It was a real effort to lift up my hand and knock on their door. They would open the door, and this light and warmth was inside the house, and all the bad feelings and bad spirits and fears and doubts and negative stuff just would leave. And the minute I walked in, there was all this peace and love. And I mean, these people were glowing, and they were all young people, guys and girls, and they all look like hippies and stuff. They look like cool people, and everywhere there was like guitars, just like me. See, I have my guitars. There was guitars, and there was happiness, and there was movement. It was a large house, and there was a lot of people. There must have been like, of the people that lived there must have been like 30 or something. I don't know. There was just action and movement and going on and here and there. And then they would get together and pray and read the Bible. Well, I was flabbergasted and basically stupefied. It was just so overwhelming. There was so many things going on at once. And then they would read these letters from their prophet Moses David, and it was pretty radical, man. Like, obviously they were pretty liberal about sex and stuff, and he would write these poems. He was somewhere in hiding and seclusion, and he would send his messages, his writings to all the different homes around the world, and they would read them and get together, just like they would also read the Bible, just like they would also pray, just like they would also speak in tongues. But some of those letters, man, they were like shocking. There was a poem I remember called Mountain Maid, talking about a topless, beautiful maiden from the mountains, and how her breasts, well, blah, blah, blah. So, and they were obviously, the prophet would drink wine and, and talk about beautiful topless maidens. The girls of the community wouldn't wear, also they would not wear bras, and they wore these long flowing hippie dresses, and everybody was cool. They were very happy. Like I said, happiness was flowing. And then to top it off, they would have these wild gypsy dances where everybody would dance, and it was like, I mean, you could not be there and be into yourself or not be happy. You had to get in the happiness. It was impossible, or somebody would spot you out and make you dance and get you up, and everybody was in a very positive frame of mind. Then they would all sit down and read the great Mo letters, and Mo was like a crazy hippie prophet in a mountaintop or something. And, it seemed good. Everything seemed good to me. Everything seemed good to me. Oh, also, except that they would go out and witness and go out two by two, go out to the streets and reach out to people, and they would print literature. They had their own literature, which they would print and distribute, in large amounts. And the literature that they printed was the Mo letters, some of them, that were considered for the general public. And they were pretty radical, too. They were pretty radical for Christians are concerned. And they would go out and distribute all these things. And at that moment, I guess at that time of their organization, this was like in late '74, something like that. Yeah, 1974, going on 1975. There was a comet coming to the planet Earth, which was Comet Kahutik. And according to their prophet, they said that comet was announcing the end of time. And there's just so much to say. They said that the Antichrist was going to take over the world in 1986. Mind you, we were in 1975, so we still had a little leeway there of, 9 years of space, and a little window of 9 years before the Antichrist was put in power in 1986, and that Jesus was going to make his arrival to planet Earth in 1993, to be exact. 7 years after the Antichrist's rule over planet Earth. Yeah, so then that was the situation. So there was no time, man. There was no time. We had to go out, and they had to go out. I was not part of the group at that point. I was just a visitor. But they had this pressure. So they would distribute this one piece of literature that said 40 days, it was talk about, because I guess the comet was coming in 40 days or something. And America shall be destroyed and Israel will be invaded. They felt that was the beginning of the great confusion that was going to come upon planet Earth on the world. And we were out of time, basically. And everybody had to repent and receive God and receive Jesus, because it was the end of the situation. So, Okay, so that's what happened. So next, I'm going to be talking about more of this exciting revolution for Jesus with the Family International and the Children of God and their wild gypsy dances and the girls with topless girls. I mean, girls that wore no bra.